In the old village of Ukana, there lived a royal family that was very rich and powerful. This family had always been blessed with many good things, like wisdom and long life, but they had never had a baby girl. For as long as anyone could remember, the royal family only had boys, and the people in the village whispered that it was a strange curse. But when King Uzi was the ruler, something amazing happened. Queen Ifuru, his loving wife, gave birth to a healthy baby girl. This was the first time a girl had been born into the royal family. The whole village was very happy because they believed that having a princess would bring many blessings to the land. The princess was named Ojo, which means a new dawn, because her birth was like the start of a new, bright chapter for the royal family. Everyone in Ukana loved Ojo. She was beautiful, kind, and the villagers adored her. As she grew up, her beauty and grace became known far and wide. Ojo had a best friend named Ada, who was the daughter of a noble family. The two girls were always together, playing in the royal gardens and exploring the forest around Ukana. They shared everything with each other and trusted one another completely. As Ojo grew older, many men from different lands came to ask for her hand in marriage. But Ojo didn't want to marry any of them. She wanted to find true love, not just marry someone because they were rich or important. One day, while Ojo and Ada were walking by the river, they met an old woman who looked very mysterious. The old woman seemed to know something special about Ojo. She told Ojo, "Princess Ojo, the time has come for you to fulfill your destiny. Be careful, for your path is connected to things beyond your understanding. You must make the right choice, or the consequences will be terrible." Before Ojo could ask what the woman meant, the old woman disappeared. Ojo felt uneasy but didn't tell anyone about what happened. Days later, the village held a big festival to celebrate the harvest season. Ojo, dressed in a beautiful gown, was the center of attention. But even as everyone was having fun, Ojo couldn't stop thinking about the old woman's warning. That night, during the festival, the village elders began a special dance around the sacred fire. Suddenly, the flames grew tall and a giant python slithered into the middle of the crowd. The snake was enormous and looked very powerful. It moved gracefully and came straight toward Ojo. The villagers were afraid, but Ojo couldn't move. The snake stopped in front of her and spoke in a deep voice, "Princess Ojo, I am Ojadili, the guardian of the forest. Your ancestors made a promise to me long ago. In return for wealth and protection, they vowed to give their firstborn daughter to the forest. You, Ojo, are that daughter. Your destiny is with me." Ojo was shocked. She had heard stories about the spirits of the forest but never thought she would be involved in one. King Uzi, her father, stepped forward and said, "My daughter is not an offering. She is the future of our kingdom." Ojadili replied, "This is not a sacrifice, it is the fulfillment of a sacred promise. Ojo's fate was decided when she was born. She must come with me to the heart of the forest." Ojo knew there was no escape. The old woman's warning echoed in her mind. With a heavy heart, she stepped forward and said, "If this is my destiny, then I will go." But King Uzi shouted, "No, she will not go with you, deceiver." He drew his sword and the warrior stood in front of Ojo to protect her. Ojadili, now angry, said, "How dare you call me a deceiver? I am a god, and I do not lie. Your ancestors made a covenant with me. I saved this village from a terrible plague long ago, and in return they promised me the firstborn daughter. She is my bride." Ojadili looked at Ojo and she felt scared. Suddenly, Ada appeared out of nowhere, grabbed Ojo's hand, and they both ran away. Ojadili hissed in anger, and the force of his hiss knocked down the warriors and even the king. He then went after Ada and Ojo. As the giant python slithered through the village in a rage, Ojo and Ada ran through the forest, their hearts pounding in fear. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting eerie shadows that seemed to chase them as they fled. Ada pulled Ojo along, her determination evident despite her own fear. The villagers were scared and all ran back to their huts. The queen cried bitterly. Her only child is in danger. The warriors ran toward the serpent too, so they would protect Ojo and Ada. The king wanted to join them, but the oracle called him back. He is scared and fall before him. What should we do? He asked. Let's go to the shrine and consult the gods. He said, maybe this is the fulfillment of the prophecy. Ojo and Ada ran through the thick forest, their hearts racing with fear. The forest was dark and spooky, and the ground shook as the giant serpent Ojidili chased them. The cries and sounds of the village battle faded behind them. They came across an old, hidden hut and quickly went inside, trying to hide from Ojidili's glowing eyes and hissing noises. Ada looked worried but determined. Why did you come with me? Ojo asked. Ada replied, I couldn't stay and watch my best friend face this alone. They heard Ojidili getting closer. The girls knew they had to move again. Let's get out of here, he's coming closer, Ada said. But to where? Where we run to? Ojo asked, scared. I don't know, let's just go, Ada said as she dragged Ojo out of the hut into the dark forest. Ada led the way to a small clearing with a big, ancient tree. Underneath the tree was a secret entrance. This must be it, Ada said, her voice shaking a little. Let's go inside. Wait, where is this? Ojo asked. There's no time to explain, my princess, but I just know that I have to save you. Let's go. Before Ojo could say a word, Ada dragged her into the tunnel. The tunnel was dark and twisty, but they finally found a hidden chamber with an old, wise woman. She looked at them with knowing eyes and said, I've been waiting for you. I knew you would come, led by your honest friend. Ojo recognized her as the old woman who had told her about her destiny. You, do I know you? Ojo asked. You do, my princess. I am the wisest of my kind and the keeper of the tunnel. I've been here from the beginning and I will be here even after the end. The hisses of Ojidili grew closer, as though he had entered the tunnel too. Please help us, Ada said, shivering. Ojidili is chasing us and we need a place to hide. The wise woman nodded. No one hides from a spirit, the old woman said. Suddenly Ojidili's hissing was very close, and when they turned back he was already there. The old woman knelt before the serpent, and Ojo and Ada followed, trembling with fear. I beg for mercy. The old woman said, Please give me 7 days to help her understand her destiny. Ojidili calmed himself as he looked at Ojo. 7 days you have. I shall be back in 7 days, he agreed and slithered away, promising to return in 7 market days. Ada and Ojo collapsed, exhausted and scared. The old woman turned to them. There are things you need to know, my princess. Rise and follow me. Ada looked at Ojo and Ojo looked back at her. Ada got up and helped the princess to stand too. The old woman began to move and the girls followed her. She suddenly stopped and looked back. You cannot come with us. This is only for Princess Ojo, she said to Ada. Never. I do not trust you. And I can't leave her with you, Ada said defiantly. The old woman looked at Ojo and Ojo looked back at her. Then the old woman turned and walked away. Ada held the princess's hand and they followed her. They followed the old woman deeper into the forest until they reached a bright, magical place. Everything was white and sparkling. This is the place of purity, the wise woman said. Here, Princess Ojo will see her destiny and the dangers if she doesn't fulfill it. "Get into the hut, my princess." Ada was worried. "Is there no other way? Maybe we can sit and watch the destiny being played out or something," Ada suggested. "Is this some kind of joke to you?" the woman said sharply. "This is beyond what you imagine." Turning to Ojo, the woman continued, "My princess, this is your destiny. The future of Ukana is in your hands. Will you stay alive and watch the people of Ukana suffer from the old plague that was cleansed by mercy?" Ojo was confused. "Old plague? What is she talking about?" Ada asked. "Go in and see it for yourself, my princess," the woman said. Ojo was scared but brave. She prepared to enter the glowing hut, and Ada held her hand, whispering, "Be strong. I'm here for you." Ojo nodded as she walked into the hut. Inside, everything was bright and glowing. Ojo touched a shiny stone slab, and the light grew brighter. Ada looked at the old woman, who suddenly disappeared. Ada got scared and screamed, running toward the hut, but it suddenly vanished. She screamed bitterly, calling for Ojo, but Ojo never answered. Ada collapsed on the white soil and cried bitterly. She thought the old woman had deceived them and that now the princess was gone. Meanwhile, the old woman was just trying to help. The hut was a sacred place where destinies are revealed. Once the keeper of the hut, which is the old woman, left to witness the revelation of the seeker, the hut would vanish and could only return once the seeker had finished seeing the future. Ojo traveled into her destiny. First, she saw herself in a dark forest and at a grand, scary wedding with Ojadili. She saw how happy the people of Ukana were after the wedding. She met an old man who introduced himself as her forefather. "My daughter, I know it's not easy to leave your loved ones to be in the forest as a bride of a god, but you have to. If not, the people will suffer again." He suddenly disappeared as her village appeared before her. She saw her people suffering from a terrible plague, with everyone sick and the fields turned to ruins. A voice warned her these were the people of Ukana until Ojadili came for their rescue. "If you refuse your destiny, the plague will return worse than before." When the vision ended, Ojo was back in the white hut, feeling the weight of her destiny. The old woman appeared and said, "You must face your destiny to save your people." Ada was tired of waiting and ready to go home, believing Ojo was gone. Suddenly she saw the hut had returned. As she got closer, she saw Ojo coming out of the hut, with the old woman holding her hand. "Princess," Ada called as she ran closer and held Ojo. Ojo didn't say anything. "Go and think about your decision, my princess. The destiny of the people of Ukana rests on your shoulders," the old woman said, then disappeared. "What did you see?" Ada asked. Ojo looked at her. "Let's go." "We will talk later," Ojo said. Back in the village, the king and the elders faced the harsh reality of the oracle's prophecy. They watched the oracle in fear as his words sank in. Knowing that they had no choice but to prepare for the possibility of further suffering, "It is the fulfillment of the prophecy, my king. Ojo must marry the guidance of the forest, or we will suffer the plague of the olden days." "Is there no other way out?" the king asked. "The gods have not spoken. They stay silent in the shrine." As Ojo and Ada approached the village, Ada suddenly stopped her and asked, "What is your plan, my princess? You haven't said a word to me since you got back from the vision." She said, "Let's get to the palace first," Ojo said to Ada. The two friends continued their journey back to the palace. As Ojo and Ada approached the palace, the weight of the prophecy bore heavily on Ojo's shoulders. The village was still in turmoil, and the people anxiously awaited any sign of hope. Ojo's mind raced with thoughts of her destiny and the looming threat of the plague. The palace gates creaked open, and the two friends entered. The king and the elders rushed toward them. May the gods be praised for your safety, the king said, his voice trembling with relief. How did you escape, Ojadili? We feared you were lost forever. No, Father Ojo replied. Ada took me somewhere. The queen emerged from the shadows, rushing to embrace Ojo tightly. My daughter, I was so worried, she whispered. Once inside the palace, they gathered to hear Ojo's tale. Where did Ada take you? The king asked. She led me to the wise woman of the olden days, Ojo explained. The wise woman of the olden days? One of the elders echoed in disbelief. Yes, my elders, Ada interjected. My mother once told me a story about the wise woman. She is the only one who can withstand the wrath of any god and has her ways of appeasing them. Before she passed away, my mother gave me directions on how to find her, believing that one day I might need her help. When the serpent came, I remembered her words and decided to take the princess there. The king leaned forward. And what did she reveal to you? Ojo took a deep breath. I have seen the future. The old woman showed me what will happen if I do not fulfill my destiny. The people of Yukana will suffer a terrible plague, far worse than before. It was terrible in the time of our fathers, an elder murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of memories. The queen's face turned pale. What must be done? Is there no other way aside from marrying Ojadili? Ojo hesitated before answering. I must marry Ojadi, the serpent god of the forest. It is the only way to prevent the plague and save our people. The queen's eyes widened in horror. Marry him? But he is a monster. Ojo nodded solemnly. I know, but it is the only way to ensure the safety of our people. We have no choice. The queen's voice trembled as she turned to the king. Our only child. No, something must be done. She cried out, leaving the elders and everyone in tears as she stormed out. The mood in the palace was grim. Ada stayed close to Ojo, refusing to leave her side. That night they both lay awake in their hut, deep in thought. Suddenly Ada had a idea. My Princess Ada began. If there is a plague, there must be a cause. And if we can prevent that cause, maybe you can escape your destiny.